If you're choosing a shotgun to protect your home, we've all been told that the 12 gauge is your only option. Here's the truth. For a lot of families, grabbing a 12 gauge might be a mistake, and the 410 might actually be a better option. So today I'm going to be comparing the 410 to the 12 gauge to see which one is better for home defense. So what I've done is I built a standard 2x4 framed wall. I put 1/2-inch drywall on one side and 7/16 plywood on the other. It's just a common 16 on center 2x4 framed wall. So what I've got today is just a 24-inch long 410. We're going to be using slug through it demonstration. This is a 1/5 ounce slug, very little, not going to have any kick at it all. This is just a standard shotgun. It's not shortened, 24-inch barrel. Probably for home defense, I wouldn't be using a 24-inch barrel. I'd be a 16, but this is what I have for demonstrations today. So this is what we're going to use. I'm going to put this slug into that wall. We're going to see the penetration. I'm going to shoot a little bit to the left because I've got a little guy behind there. We're going to see the penetration, see how far it goes through things. So the 410, this was a 1/5 ounce lead slug. This is the wad, and this is the actual bullet hole. And obviously it went through the drywall, went through the plywood on the backside. We'll check it out. This is the exit wound out of the back of the wall here. This is 7/16 plywood. And as I'm looking at this actually, we've got about a 1-inch drop from the other side. It was about 1 inch higher, and it dropped going through that drywall. So it did slow it down. It did change the trajectory of that 410 lead round. So this is our 410, and after it's went through our drywall, our plywood, and we've got, I don't know, this is about 5 feet away. And it did go through, and it continued into the backstop. It's got about another inch of fall though. If I had to kind of guess from going through those layers, I'd say it dropped about another inch. So the 410, it is going through multiple walls. If you live really in close quarters with somebody else, you know, you're also worried about penetration through multiple walls, the 410 1-ounce lead slug is something you guys should be concerned with. So obviously you guys can see the entry wound is pretty small. There's no kick on these guns. I would compare it to shooting a 22. I mean, there's just nothing to them. As you shorten the barrel, it's probably gonna have a little bit more kick, but this is a full choke, so this is gonna be compressing that slug a little bit and creating a little bit of back pressure, but there's no kick on a 410 that I can tell you about that's significant. So now I'm gonna be shooting a 12 gauge 1-ounce slug through my homemade wall. The 12 gauge has always been my home defense go-to. It's what I trained with, it's what I shoot the most often. It's just something I'm familiar with, and also commonality of finding different rounds. I mean, there's so many different options. All right, so now I'm going to shoot the wall. Let's see what happens. So this is our 12 gauge. That's the actual hole. That's the wad. I don't know what that is. Maybe a shrapnel off the wad. It's a nice clean cut. It's moving, man. But that's a 1-ounce lead slug. Obviously it goes right through the drywall. Let's see what it did to the backside. So this is 7/16 plywood, and it went clean through it like it was nothing really. It looks like my point of impact from what I was aiming still hasn't dropped anything on bullet drop through going through multiple layers. We'll have to check out my target back here because it did penetrate into him as well. So obviously that bullet went through the drywall, through the plywood, and kept moving. I think maybe we probably got maybe an inch of drop, maybe not even that, and it obviously kept going into the backstop. So the slug is gonna go through multiple walls. So something to consider when using the 12 gauge slug, this is just a 1-ounce lead slug that you got neighbors or whatever, you live in some close quarter areas, or you're worried about people on the other side of the wall, things like that, it's gonna go through multiple walls, so it's something to consider in home defense. So the 12 gauge has got some kick to it. On the last round of an automatic shotgun, it always has a little bit more recoil than the other rounds before it. Just like with a pump shotgun, they have some recoil to them. The nice thing about an automatic in most cases, except for on the last round, they normally don't recoil as bad. It's something to think about, but the 12 gauge is just hard to beat. Now I've got the 410, and I'm gonna be using the Hornady Critical Defense slug with 2 round balls. I've never shot this through a 410. I have shot it through a 12 gauge. I'm anxious to see how it performs through the drywall, into the 7/16 plywood, and see if it continues to go through. So this is the 410. It's the slug and the 2 small round balls. This is our wad right here. so it didn't go penetrate more than the drywall. But as you can see, and it could be my shotgun, it could be the length of the barrel or whatever. It was running a full choke, so sometimes that tightness makes the slug come out a little bit different. That slug did keyhole. It was turned sideways when it hit. The round balls stayed pretty tight. The whole grouping is pretty darn small. So this is our slug. It did keyhole. These are our two balls. It's a tight group, that kind of what to be expected on a 410. So after it went through the drywall, through the 7/16 plywood, we had our paper guys back here. We have two holes here that were not there prior to. I do not know where our third projectile went. This is probably the slug, and that's a round ball. I don't know where the other one went though. It's not anywhere around here that would be the correct area. So even the 410 is going to penetrate through multiple surfaces. All right, so the Hornady Critical Defense, it's the slug with the two round balls in it. I'll tell you what, it could be a little bit with my barrel. The slug itself did keyhole, did turn sideways when it went through. It did go through both layers, by the way. The two round balls did very well. It looks like the trajectory stayed the same. It's a pretty impressive hole. It is going through multiple walls though, and it is going to continue. It could be the barrel that I'm using though, is why that slug actually did keyhole like that. So maybe not having a full choke barrel like I have right now could change that. The kick is nothing. It was a lot less than that 1/5 lead slug. It was actually pretty impressive. I think you could get multiple rounds down range without having to worry about a lot of kick on that. This is nothing compared to the 12 gauge. So now I've got the Beretta A300. I'm going to be using the Winchester Defender. It's 3 double-aught buck with a 1-ounce slug. I'm going to be shooting it through my Beretta A300. So what we've got is we've got our 3 double-aught bucks right here, and then that one right there is our 1-ounce slug. They must have separated and had 2 separate wads, wad for the double-aught buck and a wad for the slug. There's our slug, nice entry hole. I'm impressed. So backside's even more impressive. So here's our exit wounds on the back of our wall. So that's our 1-ounce slug, and then our 3 little double-aught buck. Pretty symmetrical, really. And I don't see that we had any bullet drop once it hit the drywall and coming through this wall. It continued on pretty well. So obviously it went through the drywall, through the plywood, continued on, hit my little paper targets here. It must have went in between these guys, but I believe that this is one of our BBs and maybe right there. And then I think this is another one. Our slug must have went in between them. The 3 double-aught buck and the 1-ounce slug definitely went through those multiple layers in our paper target behind the wall. I'm impressed. That's a neat round. I think you guys should really consider for home defense Winchester Defender. All right, so now what we're going to be shooting is the Hornady Critical Defense double-aught buck. It's a tight group for what that is, double-aught buck. I always think it's going to be spread out a little bit more, even on impact. So let's check out the backside. So it went through the drywall, went through the 7/16 plywood, which is what most houses are built out of. So you still got to remember, it's going to penetrate through multiple walls. All right, I've got the 410. I'm going to be testing the Ultimate Defense triple-aught buckshot by Remington. This is the 410. I think it's 4 BBs. And then that's the wad right there. I kind of like that spread. I always like to see just a little bit bigger spread than like what we've got going on over there with the 12 gauge. Let's see what the backside looks like. So just like the front, the spread, it has a little bit, if you compare, they dropped just a little bit, maybe a 1/2 inch difference in after it's went through that drywall, but it penetrated through the 7/16 plywood and it continued on. I like something that anytime you get a spread about the size of your fist or something like that, that's a good ammunition for home defense. So obviously it went through the drywall, through the 7/16 plywood, continued on. These are about 5 feet apart. That bullet drop has dropped significantly, probably 6-8 inches, something like that, from where it hit over here to where it's hitting here. But we've got a few little rounds that did still hit. I don't know if that one right there is one or not, but we've at least got 3, and I think there was only 4 in that one. So it did pretty well. It may have been right underneath that, but it did well. So guys, you've seen it, 12 gauge versus the 410. I'm gonna always pick the 12 gauge. It's what I'm familiar with. And the 410 has really got a place in home defense. But you know, a nice 410 pump shotgun, you can get them in you know, like the 500 style Mossbergs or some of the Remingtons. You know, you can get the shorter barrel. I really think that it could be a very, very good home defense. And, you know, depending on how many rounds you can get, 5 or 6 in there, the recoil is very manageable on the 410. It would just be a good alternative to the 12 gauge when you're picking a shotgun. If you like this video, share it with a friend. Remember this: God, family, country.